The entire history of ancient civilizations before they fell. Chapter 1, Göbekli Tepe, the first temple before time. The world was cold then. Not the world of kings and gold, but of stone, wind, and endless hunger. Humans still wandered, following the herds and the seasons. We were not builders yet. We were dreamers with no place to dream. Then, somewhere in the hills of ancient Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, something impossible happened. Hunters began to build. They carried stones taller than themselves, weighing tons, shaped like the letter T. They carved animals, foxes, snakes, vultures, spirits of the world they feared and worshipped. This place was Göbekli Tepe, older than the pyramids, older than writing, older than cities. Archaeologists call it the first temple. But no one knows why they built it. There were no farms here, no kings, no wars. Only faith, or perhaps curiosity, powerful enough to move mountains. Science tells us these stones stand from around 9600 BCE, when ice still covered much of the north. It means people gathered here before they even discovered agriculture. Before bread, before metal, before civilization, there was belief. Göbekli Tepe changed everything. It showed that the human mind could build for meaning, not just for survival. We once thought religion came after farming, that people settled, then built temples. But this place reversed that story. Maybe it was belief that made us settle. Maybe civilization began not from hunger, but from awe. Every pillar faces inward, like a circle of thought, a conversation of stone. No tombs, no homes. Only symbols, geometry, and precision that should not exist for a tribe of wanderers. Some think it mapped the stars, an ancient observatory aligning with the belt of Orion. Others say it marked a calendar of the Earth's rebirth after the last ice age. When their work was done, they buried it, deliberately. Layer after layer of sand covered their masterpiece, as if to protect it from time itself. And for 12,000 years, it slept beneath the ground. Until we, the children of their distant future, uncovered it again. The story of civilization begins here, not with kings or empires, but with the mystery of why we build. A small circle of stones whispering across millennia. We were here. We looked up. We wondered. Chapter 2, Sumer, the birth of writing in the city. Long after Göbekli Tepe fell silent beneath the sand, human hands turned from worship to creation. Rivers began to rule destiny. Between the Tigris and the Euphrates, where mud met sunlight, the first cities rose. This was Sumer, the land between rivers, and the cradle of civilization. The earth there was harsh, but the rivers were life. When they flooded, they brought renewal. When they failed, they brought hunger. So humans learned to control them. They built canals, dikes, and irrigation. The first great engineering of mankind. Science began as survival. Mathematics measured grain. Astronomy measured seasons. And language became lines pressed in wet clay. The first writing, cuneiform. Each wedge-shaped mark was a whisper of progress. Merchants recorded trade. Priests recorded prayers. Kings recorded power. In Sumer, thought itself became permanent. They built cities, Uruk, Lagash. Each with temples rising toward the heavens, ziggurats. Massive steps of stone where heaven and earth could meet. Atop them, priests watched the stars, believing the sky was a map of divine will. But beneath the temples, the city lived in dust and sweat. Farms, workshops, markets. Life pulsed in patterns as precise as the stars above. Their gods were many. Enlil, lord of wind. Inanna, goddess of love and war. Each city had its protector, and each human owed their labor to both king and deity. They invented the wheel, the plow, the sail, the first laws, the first taxes, the first stories, the Epic of Gilgamesh. A king who sought immortality and found wisdom instead. Through that story, we see the oldest human question. If we build, can we outlast death? But Sumer's brilliance carried its own shadow. The land grew tired. Salt poisoned the soil. Rivers shifted course. And the balance between gods and men broke. Wars erupted, city against city, brother against brother. The same rivers that gave life also drew blood. Empires rose and fell like the tides. The Sumerians built the pattern every civilization would follow. Discovery. Expansion. Pride. Decline. Their language faded. Their temples crumbled. And their names buried beneath newer empires. Akkad, Babylon, Assyria. Yet their legacy lived on. In every letter we write. Every number we count. Every brick of every city built since. When you hold a pen, you hold Sumer. When you write your name, you echo the first human voice recorded in clay. Chapter 3, The Akkadian Empire, the first conqueror, Sargon the Great. Before Sargon, men built cities. After Sargon, they built empires. The world that followed Sumer was a world of ambition, where stone walls could no longer contain human hunger. Uruk, Lagash, Kish, each city-state claimed the favor of its god. Each fought for the rivers, for grain, for glory. And in that chaos, one man rose. His name was Sargon of Akkad. Born, they say, in secret. His mother, a priestess. His father, unknown. Cast into the river as an infant. Saved by fate and raised by a gardener. It sounds like myth. But sometimes, history begins with a story. Sargon became a cupbearer to the king of Kish. Then the king's enemy, then his conqueror. He built an army not of nobles, but of loyalty. When he marched, the world trembled. From the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. He forged the first true empire. A network of cities bound by command. Not faith. Under Sargon, the Akkadians blended Sumerian wisdom with new ambition. They adopted writing, laws, irrigation. But spoke a new tongue, Akkadian. Cuneiform changed with them. Language evolving as fast as power. His rule brought roads, trade, and unity. But it also brought fear. The old gods of Sumer grew silent, replaced by the will of one man. Temples once ruled by priests now answered to the king. Power had moved from heaven to earth. Science thrived in the shadow of conquest. Astronomers mapped the skies for omens of victory. Engineers built canals that fed both crops and armies. For a century, Akkad ruled like the sun. Distant, blinding, eternal. But no empire escapes time. After Sargon's death, his sons inherited the throne. And his enemies remembered their chains. Cities rebelled. Floods struck the fields. Then came the Gutians, fierce mountain tribes who descended like a storm. Akkad's order collapsed into dust. By 2150 BCE, the first empire had fallen. Its capital, lost to sand. Its name, forgotten for thousands of years. Only tablets in distant ruins whispered of its glory. And yet, Sargon's dream never died. Every conqueror who followed carried his shadow. Cyrus, Alexander, Caesar. All sons of his ambition. The Akkadian Empire taught humanity its most dangerous lesson. That the world could be ruled. And that no one can rule it forever. Chapter 4, Babylon, Hammurabi and the Law of Civilization. From the ruins of Akkad rose another world. A city that would echo through eternity. Its walls glittered beneath the desert sun. Its gates carved with lions and dragons. It was Babylon. The heart of Mesopotamia reborn. At first, it was a small city-state among many. But where others fought for land, Babylon fought for order. And the men who gave it that order was King Hammurabi. He ruled not by fear alone, but by the written word. He carved his power into stone. Literally. The Code of Hammurabi, etched upon black diorite, stood taller than a man and spoke louder than a god. It began simply. If a man destroys the eye of another man, his eye shall be destroyed. Justice, harsh but precise. Not chaos, but consequence. For the first time, law was no longer the voice of kings. It was the voice of civilization itself. In those lines of stone, we see the birth of the modern world. Property, contracts, marriage, debt. Even wages were measured and defined. Science and society walked hand in hand. They built canals with geometry, counted crops with mathematics, and recorded the heavens with discipline. The Babylonians watched the stars like teachers. They named constellations, tracked eclipses, and divided the circle into 360 degrees. A gift that still shapes our clocks and maps. Their astronomers weren't just dreamers. They were scientists wrapped in myth. At night, priests climbed temple towers, ziggurats, to study the sky. To them, the heavens were a calendar of gods. To us, they were the birth of astronomy. Babylon grew from wisdom and will. Its walls became symbols of greatness. Its art, a mirror of human pride. But pride always builds higher than wisdom can hold. As the city expanded, ambition turned to arrogance. Generations later, a new Babylon rose under Nebuchadnezzar II. A city of impossible beauty. Hanging gardens, terraces dripping with life in the desert air. Golden gates, towering temples. It seemed eternal. But like the ziggurats themselves, what rises high must one day fall. Empires circled Babylon like vultures. Persians, Greeks, Parthians. Each took its turn upon her throne. Each left her weaker than before. When the last fires burned out, only dust and legend remained. The name Babylon became a symbol of greatness and corruption intertwined. A warning whispered through scripture and story. Yet her true legacy endures. The rule of law, the order of numbers, the rhythm of the stars. Babylon fell. But every civilization since still lives under her shadow, trying, like Hammurabi once did, to turn chaos into justice. Chapter 5, Assyria, the Empire of Iron and Fear. Before the sound of chariots filled the desert, before cities trembled beneath banners of war, the Assyrians watched from the north, patient, disciplined, and waiting. Their home was Ashur, a city carved into the banks of the Tigris River. Its people learned early that survival required strength. While others built temples, Assyria built armies. They were the first to forge empires of iron. Their weapons cut cleaner, lasted longer, and their will was sharper still. They studied war like others studied stars. Strategy became science. Terror became policy. When Assyrian armies marched, they marched in silence. Tens of thousands, perfectly ordered. Each soldier part of a vast, living machine. Cities that resisted were erased. Walls torn down, leaders impaled. Their stories carved into palace stone as warnings. Fear was not a byproduct. It was their greatest invention. And yet, inside this cruelty was genius. Their capital cities, like Nineveh and Nimrud, were masterpieces of engineering. Canals brought water for miles. Palaces gleamed with carved alabaster. And libraries grew, yes, libraries. It was in Nineveh that King Ashurbanipal built the world's first great royal library. Over 30,000 clay tablets, preserving myths, laws, medicine, astronomy. Among them, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the world's oldest story, rescued from oblivion by the very empire known for destruction. Assyria's rulers claimed divine right. They saw themselves as chosen by the gods to impose order upon chaos. Their kings were both warriors and priests. Their victories celebrated as divine proof. But no empire built on fear can last forever. The oppressed remember. The burned rebuild. And vengeance is patient. In time, the Babylonians and the Medes rose together against their tormentors. Nineveh burned. Its towers fell into ash and water. The river that once fed Assyria washed away its empire. When archaeologists found its ruins, they uncovered walls covered in battle scenes. Chariots, lions, captives. But among the images of war, they also found something else. Mathematical tables, medical recipes, star charts. A mind that sought to understand, not just to rule. Assyria was both darkness and brilliance. The hand that crushed, and the mind that calculated the heavens. They taught humanity the cost of conquest and the fragility of fear. When Nineveh fell, the world did not mourn, but it never forgot. Chapter 6, Egypt, the Kingdom of Eternity. While empires rose and burned in Mesopotamia, far to the west, the river Nile flowed like a timeless vein through stone and sand. Every year it flooded, and every year it withdrew, leaving behind black soil, fertile and full of promise. Here, life followed the rhythm of the water. The people called it Kemet, the Black Land. And from that rhythm, they built forever. Egypt was not born in chaos, but in order. Where others built for war, Egypt built for the soul. Its kings, the pharaohs, were not just rulers, but living gods. Their breath was divine, their words sacred. Their duty, to keep the balance, ma'at, the harmony between heaven, earth, and the underworld. And so they built. Stone upon stone. Weight upon meaning. The pyramids rose like frozen prayers. Each block a promise of eternity. Each chamber aligned with the stars. Science and faith danced together here. Astronomers studied the sky not for power, but for truth. They tracked the cycles of Sirius, the star whose rising foretold the Nile's flood. Mathematics shaped temples. Medicine healed bodies with herbs and logic. Guided by the pulse of the heart, their gods watched from every wall. Isis, Osiris, Horus, Anubis. Each story a mirror of nature. Each symbol a code for the mysteries of life and death. And priests with power. Pyramids turned from temples of wonder to monuments of vanity. Gold buried deep beneath sand. While hunger grew among the living. Foreigners came, Hyksos, Nubians, Persians. Each conquered Egypt. And each was absorbed by it. As if even invaders bowed before eternity. Then came Alexander. Then Rome. And the last pharaoh, Cleopatra, stood between old gods and a new world. When she fell, the kingdom of eternity went silent. But Egypt never truly died. Its stones still speak in sunlight. Its symbols still guard the idea that life has meaning beyond time. Every tomb, every statue, every hieroglyph says one thing. We built not to live forever, but to prove that we once existed. Chapter 7, Nubia and Cush, the black pharaohs of the Nile. South of Egypt, where the desert gives way to rocky hills and red earth, flowed the same eternal river, the Nile. But here, its current carried a different song. This was Nubia, a land older than its conquerors remembered. Its people mined gold, crafted iron, and carved kingdoms from stone long before history whispered their name. In the city of Kerma, monuments rose not for pharaohs, but for ancestors. A civilization both shadowed by Egypt and older than it in spirit. When Egypt's power waned, the Nubians rose, fierce, proud, unbroken. They built a kingdom of their own, Cush. Its capital, Napata, became the beating heart of the south. They studied Egypt's ways, its gods, its temples, its writing. But they did not copy. They transformed. The gods wore darker faces. The stories carried southern winds. And the crowns of Egypt found new heads. In the 8th century BCE, a Kushite king named Pi marched north. He did not come to destroy. He came to restore. He saw Egypt divided by greed, its temples empty of faith. So he conquered it not for gold, but for balance, for Ma'at. When Pi took Thebes, he bowed before Ammonius' statue and wept, not as a conqueror, but as a believer returning home. For nearly a century, the Kushite pharaohs ruled as Egypt's 25th dynasty. They built temples, revived art, and tried to heal a broken empire. But the Assyrians came, iron, fire, and vengeance, and drove the black pharaohs back to their homeland. Yet Cush did not fall. It moved its capital south to Meroe, a city of smoke and iron. Here, the desert rang with the sound of forges. The Kushites mastered ironworking, turning their empire into an industrial power of the ancient world. Their queens, the Kandakes, ruled with wisdom and defiance. One of them, Amon Irena's, faced the might of Rome itself. When Augustus sent his legions south, she met them with spear and flame, and forced Rome to retreat. The Romans called her a lioness in battle. Her victory carved a truth into time. The South was never silent. Centuries later, as Meroe's forges cooled, and its gods faded into dust, its pyramids still pierced the sky. Smaller than Egypt's, but countless, as if every soul demanded its own monument. The world forgot their names, but not their strength. Kush was proof that power does not always wear pale stone. Sometimes it shines black, like the river after rain. Next, we'll journey east, beyond deserts and mountains, to the mysterious Indus Valley civilization, where cities ran like machines, streets whispered of order, and yet, no one knows their words. Chapter 8, The Indus Valley, the silent architects of order. Before Rome, before China, before the pyramids reached their peak, another world thrived between two great rivers, the Indus and the Sarasvati. It had no emperors, no giant statues of gods, no records of war. And yet, it built cities with precision that modern eyes still struggle to match. This was the Indus Valley civilization, the silent civilization. Its cities, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, were laid out like blueprints. Straight streets, perfect grids, brick houses with drainage systems beneath them. Every home had access to clean water. Every neighborhood shared public baths. It was as if order itself was their religion. Their bricks were standardized, their weights calibrated. Their trade network stretched from Persia to Mesopotamia. They used seals, tiny carved stones, to mark goods and property, each bearing mysterious symbols that no one has yet decoded. The Indus people built not for kings, but for balance. They had no palaces, no obvious temples, no signs of hierarchy. Their power lay in cooperation, in system, not in sword. They were pioneers of urban planning and public hygiene, concepts thousands of years ahead of their time. Archaeologists found ancient toilets connected to a citywide sewer system, something that would not return until modern history. They traded beads, copper, ivory, and gold. Their artisans worked with delicate precision, creating jewelry and pottery so fine it still shines under the dust of ages. And yet, we do not know what they called themselves. We do not know their kings, their myths, their words. Their script, carved into seals, remains unreadable to this day. Then, sometime around 1900 BCE, the rivers changed course. Monsoons weakened. Crops failed. Cities were abandoned, quietly. Without war. Without fire. It was as if the entire civilization stood up and walked away. Nature had reclaimed what man built. The silent order dissolved back into the earth. But their influence lived on. Later cultures of India, from the Vedic age to modern urban design, still carry echoes of Harappa's precision, Mohenjo-daro's symmetry, and the Indus people's respect for balance. Science calls them lost, but perhaps they were simply complete. Having reached harmony, they chose to fade rather than fall. Chapter 9, Ancient China, the Kingdom of Heaven and Harmony. Long before the Great Wall, before emperors wore dragon robes, the Yellow River carved a path through chaos. And from its muddy banks, civilization took root. They called it Zhongguo, the Middle Kingdom, believing it stood at the center of heaven and earth. It began with Xia, the first dynasty shrouded in legend. Rulers like you the Great tamed the floods, not by fighting the river, but by guiding it. A lesson that would define China forever. Control through harmony. Then came Shang, masters of bronze, bone, and oracle. Their kings spoke with gods through carved shells, burned to reveal divine cracks. The first written words of China. But the true awakening came with Zhou. An age of thought, of order, of philosophy. Here, the idea of Tianming, the mandate of heaven, was born. Heaven grants the right to rule, they said. But only to those who rule with virtue. Lose your morality, and you lose heaven's favor. It was a system both political and spiritual. A moral science that justified rebellion and restrained tyranny. As centuries passed, China fractured. Warring states clashed like chess pieces on a vast board. But from this chaos rose ideas that shaped humanity itself. Confucius taught that harmony began within. That respect, duty, and ritual were the architecture of peace. He saw society not as law and punishment, but as relationships balanced by virtue. Then came Laozi, who whispered of the Tao, the natural flow of the universe. He said, "Water is soft, yet it carves stone. The wise do not force. They align." While the philosophers dreamed, the generals united. From the fires of war emerged Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. He burned old books, but built wonders that defied death. The Great Wall, and the Terracotta Army. Thousands of silent soldiers guarding eternity. He sought to conquer time itself. Yet in the end, time conquered him. Dynasties rose and fell. Han, Tang, Song, each leaving legacies of art, science, and invention. Paper, gunpowder, compasses, silk. China became the engine of human progress. Driven by order, guided by philosophy. To the Chinese, history was not a line. It was a circle. Every rise contained its fall. Every empire, a reflection of the same eternal rhythm. Heaven, earth, and man in balance. Until harmony is broken. And when the last emperor's crown fell, the people said, "Heaven has turned." Yet even in its decline, China's idea never died. Because it was never just a nation. It was a philosophy of existence. A belief that the greatest empire is the one within. Chapter 10, Ancient Greece, the Fire of Thought. The mountains were steep. The seas endless. And the winds carried stories as old as the stones. In this fragmented land, city-states rose, each a world of its own. Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes. All carved from rock and ambition. Sparta taught discipline, endurance, and war. Athens taught debate, logic, and democracy. One sought strength. The other sought wisdom. And both shaped humanity forever. In Athens, thinkers walked the agora, questioning the stars, the gods, and the soul. Socrates asked questions that made rulers tremble. Plato imagined perfect societies in his cave of thought. Aristotle catalogued the natural world. Plants, animals, heavens. Everything became knowable, measurable, and reasoned. Science emerged from curiosity. Mathematics traced the harmony of the universe. Astronomy studied the heavens not as gods, but as patterns. Medicine sought logic, not ritual. Logic itself became a tool to navigate both life and society. Meanwhile, the Greeks built cities like art itself. Temples, theaters, stadiums. Structures that reflected human proportion, beauty, and balance. Their architecture whispered a secret. Civilization is not only power. It is order, reason, and elegance. But Greece was not one land. It was a collection of sparks. Sometimes clashing in fire. Wars erupted. Persians invaded. City fought city. And ambition often eclipsed wisdom. Yet even in destruction, Greece gave the world immortality. Democracy, philosophy, theater, science, mathematics. Even after Macedon rose under Alexander, conquering from Greece to India, the Greeks' ideas spread farther than any army. The story of Greece is a story of thought. Of asking questions humanity still asks today. What is justice? What is beauty? How can a man know himself? They taught that ideas could outlive kings. That a question could outlast an empire. And that the human mind could reach farther than swords or gold. Even when empires fell, the fire they ignited still burns. In every school, every debate, every map of the stars, Chapter 11, Macedonia and Alexander, the World Conqueror. In the rugged hills of northern Greece, a boy was born who would not be content with borders. Alexander, son of Philip II of Macedonia, grew up with the whispers of heroes in his ears. Tutored by Aristotle, who filled his mind with philosophy, science, and the stories of gods. But Alexander did not only dream. He acted. At 20, he inherited an army of steel and ambition. By 30, he had conquered the known world. From Greece to Egypt, Persia, and the edges of India. He carried Hellenistic culture like fire. Greek language, art, science, and thought spread wherever his armies marched. Cities rose with his name, Alexandria in Egypt. Libraries filled with scrolls. Markets buzzing with traders from every corner of the globe. Yet conquest was never simple. The deserts of Persia were vast. The rivers of India unpredictable. His soldiers starved, burned, and fought. But Alexander pressed on. He believed that a single vision could reshape the world. Science traveled with him. Astronomers observed stars in lands unknown. Engineers mapped rivers and built bridges. Even cultures once isolated were catalogued, recorded, and connected in ways history had never seen. But ambition carries its own shadow. Alexander drank from the cup of hubris. He demanded loyalty, obedience, even worship. And when he died at 32, in Babylon, no heir could hold his empire together. The Hellenistic world fractured. Greece returned to city-states. Egypt, under the Ptolemies, thrived. Persia rose anew in fragments. Yet Alexander's vision survived. A world connected by language, trade, and ideas. His empire was short-lived. But the spread of knowledge and culture endured. Mathematics, astronomy, philosophy. The fire of Greece now illuminated Egypt, Persia, and India. And in that light, humanity learned a new truth. One mind can change the world. But ideas can outlive even the greatest conqueror. Chapter 12, Rome, the Republic, Empire, and Eternal Ambition. Along the Tiber River, a city rose from marshes and myths. Rome began as a village. Founded, legend says, by Romulus and Remus. Twin brothers raised by wolves. A story of survival, cunning, and destiny. From these humble beginnings, Rome grew. Its strength came not from gods or kings, but from its people, its laws, and its discipline. The Republic was born. Citizens with voices, senators with power, and armies with unparalleled organization. Science and engineering marched alongside ambition. Roads stretched like veins across the Civil wars erupted. Generals became politicians. And from this storm rose Julius Caesar, a man who reshaped Rome forever.